Hello, my name is Amanda Sears, and I'm the horticulture agent here in Madison County, Kentucky. And today is the second class in a gardening series called The Impatient Gardener. Today we will be talking about gardening in small spaces. Last week we talked about some things to consider when picking a garden site. Most plants need full sun, which would mean about 6 to 8 hours a day. We also look for areas that are level to prevent soil erosion in case of heavy rain. Well-drained soils, which can sometimes be an issue here in the county because of our clay soils, and close to a water source because plants need an inch of water a week. In the picture on the right, you can see what we think of as a conventional garden, long rows with walkways, but plants don't have to be grown in rows. This is a picture of my garden last year. I didn't use rows, but instead gave plants the recommended amount of space they needed. I also used newspaper and grass clippings as a mulch to reduce weeds. Figure out what your goal is. A garden doesn't have to be big. A big garden takes more work. Instead, consider planting less, but taking better care of what you do plant. Today, we'll talk about containers, raised beds, vertical gardening, and then some additional gardening ideas. A container doesn't have to just be a pot. Here are a few interesting ideas for containers. When I talk to people having problems with their containers, it is almost always a drainage issue. So please make sure there are plenty of holes for water to drain. If it doesn't, the plant's roots will stay wet too long and you could have some disease issues. One thing to check is if some pots do have an attached saucer, and sometimes those saucers are connected too tightly, and that can sometimes prevent some draining from happening. So make sure and check that that's not an issue. This information is from the Kentucky Gardening Guide, and it's a good reminder that not every plant can be grown in just any size container. For example, a tomato won't grow in something the size of a solo cup. So it needs a pot that's at least 5 gallons in size. So when you're trying to think of what you're going to grow in a container, make sure that it matches the plant that you're going to be growing. Don't put rocks in the bottom of a container to help with the drainage. It's not a substitution for drainage holes. The water actually perches on top of the rocks and actually does not drain. So it's a myth that it helps. Containers dry out faster than the ground. Now, how fast they dry out will depend on size, what the container is made of, and the type of plant being grown. Check frequently to see if the plant needs water. Eventually, you will probably get into a routine. Irrigate until the water drains out the drainage hose. That way you know that the soil is fully saturated. Raised beds tend to be 2 to 4 feet in width. The small size is so that a person should be able to reach in the middle of the bed without stepping inside it. Beds don't have to even have a border, but it does help to have one. It can be made out of a lot of different types of materials, so look around to see if you have anything that might work, things like bricks or mason. Avoid treated wood if you are growing edible plants, especially things like railroad ties, just to consider that. Square foot gardening is very popular, and I didn't put the name there, but Mel Bartholomew has a very interesting book called Square Foot Gardening. And the concept is to break the bed into square feet. So in a 4x4 bed, you would have 16 square feet. Each foot can have a different amount of plants in each square. For things like radishes, which are very small, you can have 16 per square. For larger plants like a cabbage, you can only plant 1 per square foot. And I think this picture breaks that down just a little bit better into what small plants, medium, large, and extra large plants would look like. And to go back one, you can see that he's also talking about vertical plants, such as tomatoes or cucumbers or pole beans. So you would want to make sure and put those on the side that would not shade the rest of the plants. Vertical gardening is a great way to maximize space. Be sure, however, that you do not inadvertently shade parts of the garden. One other thing to consider is how much support do I need for my plant? How heavy will the fruit be? A pumpkin plant vines, for example, but the fruit are so large it might make trellising more difficult. So some plants too, things like squash, cucumber, and beans have a variety. There are varieties that are bush varieties and there are varieties that are vining varieties. So if you are wanting to try to do vertical gardening, be sure to choose ones that are vining varieties. Bush varieties won't work in this instance. There are tons of different things that things will grow up, including other plants. A friend actually sent me the picture on the right, and that's of a coat rack that she found, and wondered if it would work on cucumbers to grow up. And I kind of thought on it, and I think it would, but I would definitely brace it to the ground because there'll be a lot of weight on it. And because it's metal, I'm not sure how well the vines would attach. So maybe wrap a rope around the upright part to help it. The picture on the left is a neat idea, but my concern is the weight of those pots. They would need to be well attached to the fence, especially as they might be saturated with water at some times. And I think because of the size of the pots, they would definitely need to be watered frequently. On the left are potato bags. Basically, that's a mesh bag that's like material. Basically, that's a mesh-like material container that you plant potatoes in. Some potato bags actually have a window on the side that you can actually take down, get new potatoes out of, and put back in. I've never tried that, but I have talked to a lot of people who have had a lot of luck with potato bags. On the right side is actually strawbell gardening. And a couple of things about strawbell gardening. You do have to condition the strawbell. If you don't, the plants won't grow well, and I have actually killed plants trying to do that. So another thing, they do dry out quickly, and as the season progresses, those bells start to break down, and so you may need to brace the bell so that it doesn't blow away or blow over. Just a couple more ideas. Put garden plants in your landscaping. A lot of them are very pretty, very leafy looking. So make room for there if you have them. If you decide to do this, avoid using dyed mulch, as I don't think it is labeled to be used in that way. And also the last thing, think about doing succession gardening. Rather than planting all your lettuce at once, stagger the planting. Plant some now and wait, or at the time, when it's time, plant some at the time, wait 2 weeks, plant some more, wait 2 more weeks and plant some more. And that way you will also be staggering the harvest time so that you're not getting everything due or needing to be harvested and eaten at once. There are some plants that are more lent to growing this way better, things like lettuce, corn, and beans. Plants that obviously have a very long growing season, this probably would not be as effective. So my name is Amanda Sears, and again, I'm the horticulture agent here in Madison County, Kentucky. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to give me a call or email. Thank you and have a great day.